So one of the little items that I like to sew, it's just a little thing that I can make in an afternoon, is this felt holly. It's really cute. I can use it as a photo prop. I can put a loop on it and hang it on a tree. I can use it on a table when I'm like setting the table for Christmas or something. And I wanted to show you how I make them. Now there's a lot of variation that you can get, and you don't have to use felt. I like to use felt because the edges are nice and clean. The weight of the felt, particularly when I double it, gives a nice substantial piece. And I like working with felt in the winter. It's a nice quiet activity.
So to make these beautiful little felt holly pieces, you can use wool felt, which gives you the best result. I just think it looks really finished and lovely, something to save for years to come. Or you can use craft felt. It's not as durable, it's a little more flimsy, but you still get a beautiful result. From there, you want to choose what you want for your berries. These are felted wool balls, and they come in different sizes. There's this red and this white, and if they're too large, you can cut them in half, just like I did here, to have little smaller, flatter balls. You can cut them even further. You can use red beads, different sizes, according to the holly that you are making, or pom-poms, or you can even stitch French knots, depending on how large your holly leaf is. You don't have to make the holly leaf green. You can make it any color you want. I also use buttons for the berries. It really depends on your mood. And then I made a video on showing how to make these little balls out of leftover thread, the ORTs or the Threadlings. And you could use those as well. And you can really customize the size to make it whatever color you want for your finished piece. To get started, you want to make a template. And so I just take a little piece of cardstock or cardboard, and I just sketch out the template to whatever size I want. I make half, and then I fold it in half and cut it so that I get a symmetrical size. So I just kind of go like that, can fold it in half, and then I can cut out my holly leaf. And so there, I have a nice little holly leaf. So that's the size I'm going to make today. I have templates of other sizes, and I'll just use whichever one I want at the moment, or make my own if I want to make it even smaller. So from there, I choose the color fabric I'm going to use for the leaf, and then I get a matching thread. And the thread can be a little darker, it can be the same color, and it can be contrast. So that's really up to you. Today I'm going to make the holly leaf in white instead of the green, just for a little variation. So what I'd like to do is fold my fabric in half so that I can cut out the leaf, cut out both leaves at the same time. And I'm going to cut 2 sets of these. So I need a total of 4 leaves. You can write on the felt with a marker if you want. I'm just going to cut out a manageable size. And then I'm going to cut around my little template here. It doesn't have to be perfect. The felt gives a beautiful edge, so you don't have to worry about anything fraying or coming apart. Then I just match it up on the other side. And I'll make 2 sets of these. So I've decided that I'm going to create not only my holly leaves in this off-white, this beautiful cream, but I'm going to use these 3 little felted wool balls that are the same color. So what I want to do is I start on the first leaf. I just come down in the center here, and I want to stitch that vein in the center right up the entire leaf. And I like to tuck that tail under. I start with a back stitch, and then I just create a series of stitches from stem to stern over here. You can space them as closely together as you like, or as tight. And it's really quite lovely because stitching through felt is very soothing, it's very quiet and very enjoyable. It's a great winter activity because the felt has a little warmth to it too. Now I'm giving this holly leaf a little bit of an angle, a little curve here. That adds a little bit of interest. And then when I get to the top, I'm just going to stitch around the perimeter using that same stitch. You can use any type of stitch you want. A buttonhole stitch or a whip stitch around the edge would give an interesting trim to the edge of this piece as well. I just want to follow the curves of the holly leaf because that's what makes it interesting. And I'll keep stitching around. Now when I get to my last stitch, I'm trying to hide the knot in between these two layers of felt. So I'll just stitch through one layer, then peel it back and make it just a teeny little knot through the felt. Again, only going through that one layer. And I'll stitch it, and there it's done. Do the same thing to this piece, and then we'll come back and attach them along with the felt balls. So I've stitched both of these little leaves, and you can see the back isn't as nice as the front, but it's pretty nice. I already trimmed this one up. I just like to trim the edge here. Sometimes the felt moves. Part of it is my refusal to use pins on such a little object. It's just not worth being pricked because I'm always getting pricked with the pins. So now I take my two leaves and I decide what format I want. I can even add another leaf if I wanted, but there's usually one pointier end with sharper angle, and I like to use the dull edges together. The duller, I should say. So this is how I'm going to use it. What I like to do is come down in the center where there'll be overlap, and that hides my knot. And then I'll come back up. I'll put my piece on top, just as I want it, to really showcase all those interesting edges. And then I'll stitch just a few more stitches to tack it down and hold it in place. And I'll follow the existing lines that are there. So I'll just go around the perimeter of the top leaf that we see here. And that way the stitches will blend and they won't really stand out. Just stitch a few to hold it in place. And it'll still be held in place because the balls that we stitch on, we have to anchor those through as well. But I just like to come up here and then work my way back. Again, making those stitches. So I followed the perimeter of the top here, and it's really secure. So now I can decide how many of these little balls I want to use. I can use 2 or 3. I think 3 looks nice. So I'll have 2 at the edge and 1 up top here. So I'll start with that 1 up top. I'll come down, and because it's a felt ball, I can stitch through it. So I'll come down through both of my leaves, and then sometimes these felt balls have a little hole in them that you can already stitch through. And I don't want the string to show as much as possible, so I'll just stitch it and hold it down to the side. And I'll just stitch through it maybe 2 times. Again, I come up through the leaves, stitch through the ball, and then stitch down. And just with those 2 stitches, this ball is pretty secure. So now I'll add my next 2 balls. Start with this one here. I'll come up right through the base of that leaf, come through that ball, and I'll just repeat this procedure, making 2 stitches to hold it in place. Now, if you're stitching with a button or a pom-pom or that ORT, it'll stitch in a similar manner. The button, obviously you'll stitch through the buttonhole, but the ORT you can stitch right through, just like these little felt balls. And the pom-pom you'll have to see. Usually you can stitch through it. It depends on the content of the pom-pom and how thick and dense it is. But worst case, you can always just add a little dab of fabric glue to hold your pom-pom in place. I like the idea of a stitched ornament, completely stitched, but that's just the purist in me. So from here, I'll just knot the back, and again, I'll try and go through my fabric layers, my felt layers, just to hide the knot somewhat. Not terribly worried about that. And then I can clip that. So that's the back of the ornament, and that's the front, and it's a very elegant piece. Now I could brush the pom-poms here with a little pastel just to give them a little color if I wanted, but I really like that white on white. So those are variations using the felt to make this beautiful holly leaf. You can add a little string and hang it on a tree. You can add it to a wreath, and it happens to be great in fabric books as well.
So that's how I make the holly leaf. Sometimes I'll use more traditional colors, like the typical greens and reds, and other times I'll branch out and do something a little whimsical or unusual, and you can get a different effect however you make it. You can also make it whatever size you like, particularly to fit your needs. I hope you found this video helpful, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe. Thanks for joining me today.